Hi guys. All right, so what I'm going to show you how to do today is how to create the slabs that we're going to use to make our mug. So when we're done by the next few classes, we're going to want something that looks, here I'll hold it up differently, something like this. So you're going to have sort of a long, flat, rectangle shaped clay. And this is going to end up being the wall of your mug, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And you're also going to want kind of, it looks like a flat pancake. And it's cut to a certain, I guess, size. So I'm going to show you how to roll out your slab. You're going to be using slab slats. That's what these are called. You're also going to be using just a regular cookie sheet roller rolling pin. Something called a metal rib. That's what this is called. And a few other tools. So yeah, let's get going. Okay, so you're going to need to set up your station before we can actually do any work with the clay. But what's going to happen is you're going to get a piece of paper and you're going to want to tape it to the edge of your table. This is best done, this whole process, while standing up. So just kind of as an FYI. So after you tape your paper down, it's pretty stable. You're going to get your lump of clay and you're actually going to want to kind of mold it into kind of this sort of shape. So you want it kind of more rectangular, kind of more like that. And you're going to set that in the middle of your paper. Your slats are going to kind of go on either side. You want them sort of equally apart. You don't want them super close because however wide you make the slats, that's how wide your slab is going to be. And that, however wide your slab is how tall your mug's going to be. That'll make, again, more sense as we get going. So you're going to want these about 6 or so inches apart. And then with your roller, I'm just going to roll out the clay. Now the slats are there only to keep it so that your clay does not get too thin. You can see I'm really working to push that clay from the middle, pushing it up to the top, pulling it down towards me. I don't want this clay to be too thin because then my mug could collapse, which I don't want it to do. Pick it up, flip it over, reposition it, roll it out a little bit more. Awesome. And it might take you a couple times to do this, so if you have to return your clay into a lump, if you have to wedge it up, you can do that. Alright, I'm going to move my slats out of the way. I'm going to do one last pull. There we go. I think we're good. Put over one more time. Nice. It's a pretty good slab. All right, so now I need to seal this before I can do anything else. So what you're going to do with a squirt bottle, you're actually just going to spray your slab a little bit. You only need a couple of spritzes. Then you're going to take your rib and you're just going to scrape it along your slab. And what's going to happen is that's going to seal your slab. So clay is really porous and you want to seal those up, and that will make for a stronger slab, a stronger material to work with. And I'm going to flip it over. Oops. Same thing. A couple of squirts. Use my rib. Seal it up. You might see air bubbles. If you see any air bubbles in your slab, you're just going to take a tool, which you'll see. Take the pointy end. You're just going to pop some of those air bubbles and then reseal it back up. There we go. Get rid of those. We don't want air bubbles in our slab. All right. After you do that, you can put your rib off to the side. Now you're going to take a piece of paper, and this is going to be kind of our guide. You're going to fold it not quite in half. However, I guess amount you fold it, that's how tall your mug is going to be. So you can kind of get an idea of it when you wrap this around. Like, this is about how tall my mug will look. which I think is an okay size. So however much you decide to fold it, that's just know that that's how tall your mug is going to stand. So you're going to set that on your slab, and you really want it to line up so that all the corners can really fit on your slab. Mine doesn't fit perfectly, but that will be okay for our project. But obviously, if there was a lot that wasn't there, you'd want to redo your slab. So I'm going to go through, and I'm just going to use this as my guide to trim off the extra that I don't need. So I'm going to put that off there a little more. So I don't need the bottom. I don't need the top. And those edges. It's pretty satisfying to cut through clay, actually. It's a lot of fun. And again, this might take you a few tries, so don't feel bad if you can't roll a slab out on your first try. All right, with your extra clay, you want to put it back into a lump, and then with a damp rag, you want to just put your damp rag on top of your clay. That will keep your clay from getting dried out. All right, so there's your slab. You're going to kind of put that off to the side onto your plastic that you should already have. And then with that clay that you kind of wrapped up, if we have time in one class, if not, we'll do it the next class, you're going to return this into a lump, just making sure that it's all cohesive. You might have to wedge it a little bit to make sure there's no air bubbles in there. And wedging is just the process of remembering to get all of that air out of it. It's just crushing the clay back together. Nice. And you're going to put that down. And then with your rolling pin, you're just going to roll out your clay. You can use your slats for this part if you want, or if you're feeling confident, you don't have to use them. But again, you don't want this to be too thin. So it's a much smaller slab. This is going to be for our base, for our foot of our mug. So it needs to just be a lot smaller. It doesn't have to be a huge rectangle. What I like to do after I seal it, flip it over, seal the other side, is I actually use my paper form to kind of eyeball the size of my foot. We can trim it up later, but I'm just going to kind of roll this roughly into a circle and kind of use it as a stencil or a stamp and stick it into my clay. Just kind of press it down a little bit. And it's hard to see on the camera, but you can see just the faint outline. That just kind of gives me an idea of the size, and I just know not to cut any smaller than that. Because obviously if I have more clay, that's perfect because I can always cut away. All right, perfect. Then just take away that extra. It's okay for paper rips. And then you can put this bottom with your other slab. All right, and it should look something like this. And you'll be ready to start building. Awesome job, guys.